Hey everyone, so we are all set with graphs of polynomials for now. We will revisit them soon. But next we're going to learn how to divide polynomials. So there's two ways that we divide polynomials. The first way that we're going to do is called long division, which you probably learned in elementary school. And then the other way is called synthetic division. We're going to do that maybe next time. We're not going to spend a ton of time on long division. But anyway, long division of polynomials is very similar to long division of numbers. So I thought that I could review a couple things about long division. So first of all, the different parts. The divisor is what you're dividing, the number that you're dividing into the dividend. So the dividend is the number that you're dividing into, and then the divisor is that number that you're dividing into. So if I said 24 divided by 4, 24 is the dividend, 4 is the divisor. The answer to a division problem is called the quotient. So the dividend is underneath the dividing symbol, the divisor is on the outside. So if we were going to review this problem right here, long division with just numbers, and do 1,569 divided by 13, we would put the 13 as the divisor, that's on the outside, and then the 1,569 is the dividend, and that goes on the inside. So if you guys remember how to do long division, basically you start off by asking yourself, does this number go into the first number? Does 13 go into 1? No. So then you go to the next number. Does 13 go into 15? Yes. How many times? 1 time, right? Evenly. So then you put a 1 on top of the 5. And now we multiply. 1 times 13 is 13, and you write it underneath. Then we subtract. 15 minus 13 is 2. Then we bring down the next number, which is a 6. Does 13 go into 26? Yes, it does. It goes in twice, actually, evenly. So that goes over the 6. 2 times 13 is 26. Subtract. 0. Bring down the 9. Does 13 go into 9? No, it does not. At this point, with a problem like this, you put a decimal and then you keep adding zeros. And then you would keep going. However, do you remember how you would write it as the remainder? Remember how this is remainder? As a fraction? Do any of you remember? So you could write, do you remember doing it like this? 120 remainder 9, like that, R9. And then maybe you got a little more advanced as you got older and did 120 and then 9 over the divisor, which is 13, 9/13. Or you could have kept going and adding zeros and make it decimals. But the way we're going to do it with polynomials is more like this. Your remainder over the divisor. So we're going to do a few examples. Please try them today and then tomorrow when you're in class. That way you've seen it at least and we can do some more. So I have the directions written out here. So I'm not going to read them word for word. I'm kind of just going to do it. But you can always reference this back when you're doing this on your own. So the first thing you do is you set up the traditional long division problem with the divisor on the outside, the dividend on the inside. That's step 1. So this is my divisor. And then this is my dividend. You always want to make sure, I should have said this before, that your dividend and your divisor, I guess, are both in standard form, which is highest degree to lowest degree. They pretty much always will be. Like I wouldn't really give you one where it wasn't. Okay, so that's the setup. Next thing we do is we think about how many times the first term in the divisor goes into the first term in the dividend. So like what would I multiply x by to get x squared? That's basically what we're looking for here. So I would multiply x by x to get x squared, right? So you write it right on the top. Now, x times, now what we do is we multiply both terms of the divisor by what's on top. That's what step 3 says. So we're going to do x times x and x times 5. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. Next thing we do is we subtract. Now here's the thing with subtracting. We are subtracting this whole expression. So I'm going to put a minus here, but remember, remember when we learned how to subtract polynomials, how you're kind of like distributing this negative to both of these. So if you want to make it plus, you can change both of these signs. This is now going to be negative and this is going to be positive because we're subtracting. That's the trickiest part here is kids forget to do that. So now I'm going to subtract x squared plus negative x squared, or x squared minus x squared is 0. I did not mean to do that. You don't really want to cross off that top one, but this crosses off. And then 3x plus 5x is 8x. Bring down the next term and then repeat. So we have minus 40. Actually, you could have crossed that out. We don't need it anymore. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, so now we have 8x minus 40. So now we want to think about, we just keep doing the same thing. What do we multiply x by to get 8x? And then that goes up on the top. So x times 8 would give us 8x. So an 8 goes up on the top. And then we multiply. 8 times x is 8x. 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. And then when we subtract, we're going to change this sign and change that sign. Okay, so 8x and negative 8x, that cancels. And then negative 40 and positive 40 cancels. So see step 6, it says sometimes there is a remainder. In this case, we don't have a remainder. So this is just our answer. So that means that x minus 5 times x plus 8 would give us this polynomial. So this right here, that's your quotient. X plus 8 would be your solution. Sometimes there is a remainder. If there was, you would write it as remainder over divisor. So you do quotient plus remainder over divisor. We'll revisit that on a next example. Okay, so let's do a few more. So this next one, we have x minus 8 is our divisor. Oops. X minus 8 is our divisor. And then x squared minus 7x minus 11 is our dividend. So we want to think about, what do we multiply x by to get x squared? It's x. Now, where you write it on the top, you can write it here, or since it's just an x, if you want to write it here over the x, it really doesn't matter. Sometimes people like to write it over the x, so then you know when you're done. Like when you get to over the 11, then you know you're pretty much wrapping up. So either way, it doesn't make a difference. Anyway, so now we're going to multiply x by both of these. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 8 is negative 8x. Because I multiplied this by both of these. Okay, so now we're going to subtract these. We're going to change both of the signs. So this is going to be minus, but this is going to be plus. Okay, so now we have x squared and negative x squared. That cancels. And then negative 7x plus 8x is 1x. And then you bring down the negative 11. So now we think about, what do we multiply x by to get x? That's just going to be 1, positive 1. And then you multiply 1 by both of these. So 1 times x is x. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. Then we subtract. When we subtract, we're going to change both signs and then combine. So those are gone. And then negative 11 plus 8 is negative 3. So we've reached the end here. And I know that you can think of it as, because I wrote the x over the 7x and the 1 over the 11, there's nothing left. There's nothing left to bring down. So when there's nothing left to bring down, that's how you know you're done. And so this is your remainder. And so what you do is you write it like this. Whoops. Quotient, which this is the quotient. So x plus 1 plus remainder over divisor. Remember, this is the divisor. This is the quotient. This is the remainder. So then this is your final answer. Okay, let's do a couple more. This one, I put a little note here that says, if you have missing terms in your dividend, use 0 as a placeholder. So what we mean by missing terms, see how this is our dividend. Well, first let's get it set up. X minus 8 is our divisor. X squared minus 74 is our dividend. So see how it goes from x squared to negative 74? we need an x term in between. So that's what we mean by missing a term. So we have x squared. It's missing a term, so I'm going to put 0x and then minus 74. So you need that as a placeholder is what it's called. It won't work out right if you don't put the 0x. And so whatever term you're missing. So say it went, I'm just going to do a little example here. Say it was this. See how this one would be missing an x squared term? So you would write this. So whatever term you're missing, it depends on what it is. That's what you fill in with the 0 in the front. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing. X times what gives me x squared? It's x. I'm going to write it above the x term. And then you multiply this times both of these. So x times x is x squared. X times negative 8 is negative 8x. Remember, we're subtracting, so we're changing both signs. And then you combine. X squared plus negative x squared is gone. 0x plus 8x is 8x. Bring down the negative 74. Okay, so now I'm thinking about what do I multiply x by to get 8x? It's going to be positive 8. And then multiply. You're going to multiply 8 times x, which is 8x. 8 times negative 8, which is negative 64. Remember, we're subtracting, so we're changing both signs. Subtract, change. Okay, and then now we can combine. So 8x and negative 8x is gone. Negative 74 plus 64 is negative 10. And so this is your remainder. And then remember, you take your remainder and you write it over the divisor. So remember, on the first page, it said quotient. So this is your quotient, x plus 8 plus remainder over divisor. And that's your final answer. Okay, couple more. Here's this one. So divisor, divisor goes on the outside. Dividend goes on the inside. Keep a lookout for missing terms. This one doesn't have any missing terms. And then you start. So what do I multiply x by to get x to the third? It's going to be x squared. I'm going to put that over the x squared term. And then multiply. I'm going to multiply x squared by x, which is x to the third. X squared times 3, which is 3x squared. Just kidding, 3x squared. And then we're subtracting, so we're changing both signs. So this is minus and this is minus. Okay, these are going to cancel, and then you're going to have negative 4x squared plus negative 3x squared, which is negative 7x squared. Bring down just the next term, not both of them. So negative 30x. Now we do it all over again. Let me erase these lines for us. So what do I multiply x by to get negative 7x squared? I'm going to need a negative 7 and then another x, because x times x is x squared. Now I'm taking negative 7x, just negative 7x, and I'm multiplying it by both of these. So negative 7x times x is negative 7x squared. Negative 7x times 3 is negative 21x. We're subtracting now, so we're changing both signs. Both become positive now. And then we combine. Negative 7x squared and 7x squared are gone. Negative 30x and 21x is going to be negative 9x. And then we bring down this final term. So now let me erase these lines. So now I'm asking myself, what do I multiply x by to get negative 9x? It's going to be negative 9. And then we multiply negative 9 by x and 3. So negative 9 times x is negative 9x. Negative 9 times 3 is negative 27. Okay, and then we're going to subtract. So we're changing both signs, always. These are going to cancel. Negative 18 plus 27 is going to be 9. So that's your remainder. So remember, for your final answer, you're taking quotient, which is x squared minus 7x minus 9, and you're adding the remainder, which is 9, over the divisor, x plus 3. And that's it. One more example. Okay, so for this last example, our divisor is x minus 4. And then this is our dividend. Notice it's missing an x squared term, so we're going to plug in a 0x squared. So we have x to the third plus 0x squared minus 32x minus 7. Okay, so here we go. X times what gives us x to the third? It's going to be x squared. Multiply that by both of these. X times x is x to the third. X squared rather, times x is x to the third. X squared times negative 4 is negative 4x squared. We're subtracting, so change both signs and then combine. These are gone. 0x squared and 4x squared is going to be 4x squared. Bring down the next term. Okay, now again, what do I multiply x by to get 4x squared? I'm going to need a positive 4 and an x. And I'm going to multiply just 4x by these two terms. 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 4 is negative 16x. Subtracting, so change both signs. Now combine. Those are gone. Negative 32x plus 16x is negative 16x. Drop down the negative 7. Do it all over again. X times negative 16x. X times what gives us negative 16x? That's going to be negative 16. Let me switch to blue to match. And then multiply. So negative 16 times x is going to be negative 16x. Negative 16 times negative 4 is going to be negative 64. Oh, whoops. It's negative 16 times negative 4. My mistake. So that's going to be positive. Just kidding. Okay. So that should be positive 64 down there. And then we're subtracting again. So we're changing both signs. So this has become positive. This is now negative. So negative 16x and 16x is gone. Negative 7 and 64 is negative 64. I can't forget that negative is negative 71. So that's your remainder. Remember, answer is quotient. So x squared plus 4x minus 16 plus remainder, negative 71, over divisor, x minus 4. So here's your final answer. Okay, so it might seem kind of confusing at first, but if you remember how to divide with numbers, it's kind of similar to that. So please watch this and try the problems that I asked you to try today. And then please, please, please come for ACT Lab today if you feel like you need help. All right, so that's it. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.